Hey, this is Jay, and this is a tutorial for automatically transcribing video using self-hosted n8n and the Whisper API. So this is going to be a little bit more of a hybrid setup since we're using self-hosted n8n, and then we're still connecting to Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drive, and the OpenAI Whisper API, but mostly just to get access to the execute command node so that we could run FFmpeg. So I mostly built this flow because it's something that would help me in my YouTube editing process, but I thought it also could be really useful. So let's kind of go through, I guess, first the requirements. So as I mentioned, we're going to need FFmpeg. So if you have not downloaded FFmpeg before, definitely look into this. This thing is a superpower for doing any kind of video and audio editing. Just this one command could rip the audio right off of video and do any number of other things. But I also mentioned that we will need a Google client. And if you have not set up a Google client before, I do have another tutorial that shows you how to do that. It's really not too painful, but you just have to come to the Google Cloud Console, create a client, and make sure that it has access to all of the APIs that we are going to use. So that's kind of a brief overview of what's going on here. And then, of course, the last thing is you actually have to run self-hosted n8n, which is pretty easy. You would just do run this command, npx. If you haven't installed, you may need to install npm as well. So npx n8n start. And that should get you up and running, and you should eventually be able to log into your local hosted n8n just like this. So I also actually have another video for running self-hosted n8n. So if you need to figure out how to do that, you can also check out that video. So in this workflow, though, I'm actually just doing a manual trigger for now, but you could actually set this up to trigger off of a Google Drive or whatever. We are working in local. So you also could trigger off of your local folder if you wanted. So you actually could get rid of all of the API stuff and just run it off of your machine directly. Technically, I guess we could actually wrap the whole thing in a Docker image because you can actually download the Whisper API or the Whisper model and run it on your computer. So I would like to set up a tutorial for basically running this entire thing locally, but we'll get back to that. But for now, I am going to use the Google client to be able to connect to a Google Sheet. I still have this Google scheduling sheet like this. So what I was going to do is right now I'm kind of just looking off of a status of published, but I'm going to look for a row in this spreadsheet with the status of published so that I can get to some of the other details. We are including the video file name here, and that's the kind of the important part here, so that we can get to this first part. So once we've grabbed that value from the Google Sheet, we are going to execute an FFmpeg command. So once in this execute command, you're basically just free to put whatever you want in here. This command is just going to run on your computer or whatever machine it's running on, like it's in the terminal. So in that case, it basically would be running this command here in your terminal like this. And what we're going to do is grab the video file name from the Google Sheet because we basically need a way to be able to look for that specific file and then run a command to remove the audio from that video file, so the MP4 file. And then what I'm actually doing is I'm just taking the name of the video file and then replacing the .mp4 with a .mp3. And so if you notice, I'm also actually grabbing the input from a specific folder and then output to another specified folder. So that situation is right here. So I'm actually running n8n in this n8n local folder. And so I have input and outputs folders. So you will have to create those beforehand. The command will not create those folders. So make sure that those already exist. But then I just dropped my video in here in the input folder. And then the output video will end up in the output folder. So that's all this is doing. It just rips the audio off of the video and then puts it into a separate file. And so once that's done, similar to how Google Drive needs to download a file to be able to actually upload to YouTube and that kind of thing, like you need to actually get the binary data from that file. So that's all we're going to do here. We're going to say, okay, go back to that output folder, grab the name of that file, and I just use the same script here because it doesn't actually output that. We could update the command to actually output the name of the resulting audio file, but in this case, I just use the same script to say .replace mp4 with mp3. So it's just taking the same name from the Google Sheet, and then it's getting the actual data of that file, and then that's what we can send off to the OpenAI API. So in the OpenAI node, we actually have changed to audio source, and then we are transcribing or recording. So that doesn't really give you any options. You're just going to stick with the Whisper API. Actually, as of a few days ago, I think maybe like 5 days ago, they did actually come out with 2 new models. So GPT-4o Transcribe and a GPT-4o Mini Transcribe. Those, I mean, the Mini is actually even cheaper than the 4o Transcribe, but 4o Transcribe and Whisper are both the same price. So 0.006 cents per minute. It costs like 4 cents to transcribe a 15-minute video, which is what I was going to do. So not super pricey. But again, if you're that concerned about it, you could actually just run the Whisper model locally and not have to worry about that at all. But we'll get back to that. But once it's done transcribing the audio, and also, I guess one other thing I should point out is that there is a 25 megabyte limit to the OpenAI API. So that is a big reason for this FFmpeg hack, is that we are going to rip the audio off of the video, and that gives us a file that's considerably smaller and does not hit the API cap. So yeah, so this video is actually a gigabyte, so it would not be able to be sent into the OpenAI API for Whisper because it would be way over the limit. But when we rip the audio off, it's like 15 megabytes, so it's well within the limit. So once Whisper is done transcribing the audio file, we can take that output and unfortunately not do anything with it yet. We first have to create a Google Doc, just create the doc itself. We can't put anything in it yet. And also for some reason, I guess you can't create a Google Doc in a specified folder unless it's at the top level. So these are the only folders I have at my root. So we're just going to put them at the root level for now. And then I'm just grabbing the name again back from the Google Sheet, which you might not be able to see. It's actually behind my camera here. But the Google Sheet had the data for the title of the video, not the video file name, but the actual title that we used in the spreadsheet. So I was just going to grab this as the title of my document. So we plug in the name of the document based on the video title and then just add transcription after that, or add transcript after that. So now we've created the document, which then gives us an ID to be able to reference. So now we can reference that document ID, and yeah, so we're going to grab the doc ID there from when it was created, and then add the text from the transcript. So this huge thing will get dumped as the content of the document. So then once that is done, we are just going to go ahead. I'm moving it to a different folder. So I have a transcripts folder in my Google Drive that I have put here as a separate folder underneath like videos posted. So that's where I'm designating that gets created. And then once we've got the document where we want it, we can then update Google Sheets. In Google Sheets, we're just going to update the row that we were looking at before. And then we're going to add a link to the transcript document, which we can generate by using the ID of the document that we just created, or that we just moved, and then also grabbing the name of the document. So both of those are available, and we kind of cheat and set the value of this cell to be a hyperlink so that it actually links out. And then I have hard coded the beginning of the URL because that's always the same for all Google Docs. And that way we can just tack on the ID for the specific document, and then it should work every time. And then I'm also adding the name of the document after we created it, so that it shows up as a little bit more readable. So you get something like this. And then this document will actually link to the transcript from the video, which is a decent size. So that's pretty much it for this. I'm going to go ahead and run it just to make sure that we can see that it actually works. So what I'm going to do is delete that. So we should, once it's run, it should create should actually recreate this document. So let's go ahead and delete this document as well. All right. This document no longer exists. And we no longer reference that document. And the only last thing is that, so FFmpeg, I mean, we could probably handle this a little bit more dynamically, but right now, FFmpeg will just kind of stall if there's already a document with the same name. So I'm going to delete that. And then we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and test this out. So again, I'm actually manually triggering here, but again, you could trigger this off of, you know, a Google Drive update or whatever. But basically, as soon as you dump in a new video file, then you could kick this off. So for me, it made more sense to do it like this, but let's go ahead and test it out. So I'm going to test workflow, and it's grabbing this video from the input folder and then outputting the MP3, and then it's going to take that MP3 file, send it off to OpenAI, and then hopefully it shouldn't take too long for them to transcribe. This is where if you were running this locally, something like this, at least running on a MacBook that I'm running on now, when you run Whisper, for me, it took about whatever the length of the audio was, that's how long it took to transcribe. OpenAI is going to be a lot better. I mean, this is a 15-minute audio transcription, but OpenAI doesn't take that long. Usually takes like a minute or less. And if you have a really powerful GPU that you can run it on your own computer, then it will take a considerably shorter amount of time. So yeah, so it wasn't that long. Now we create the document, add the transcript to the document, move the document to the folder that we actually wanted, and then update Google Sheets to reference that new document. So assuming everything worked the way that it should have, we should have a new document here. All right. And then this should actually reference that transcript. And so if we click on it, there we go. We have a 15-minute transcript from the video. So that's it. I didn't rebuild this one. Running it locally is actually a little tricky because I think there's too much data as far as being able to pull in the entire audio file. So then it just starts yelling at you that there's too much data. I can't run this locally. And so you can't test nodes individually. So I didn't want to kind of go through that whole process again. But this is just an example of how you could pull audio from video and then write your own transcription. You could actually just upload to YouTube directly, and then YouTube will eventually automatically transcribe the video. But like, I didn't really want to wait for that. And then plus I have to go back to YouTube and then pull that transcription out or run another thing to actually pull the transcription off of my video. So felt like this made more sense. I didn't mention it, but I was going to say as part of my video editing process, I also do tend to rip the audio off and run it through something like Phonic, just to be able to clean up the audio. Makes it sound like I'm not using this headset. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. A little bit different than the other ones, but let me know if you have any questions or comments, or if there's any other workflows that you would like to see. I am going to continue to create tutorials like this. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.